3 spine-chilling true New Year's Eve horror stories revealed. Cursed events you must discover. Clara's heart raced as she tossed the last of the decorations onto the kitchen table. This was supposed to be a joyful night, the promise of a new year blooming in her small Midwestern town. But the icy winds tapping at the windows whispered warnings that chilled her to the bone. The legend of the Veiled Watcher had haunted her thoughts all winter long, an old family tale she had shared with her kids to keep the spirit of New Year's Eve alive amid their difficult circumstances. A presence believed to drift through the streets at midnight, preying upon those too caught up in festive cheer. Would this year, with its heavy snow and tighter belts, be the one where the stories came to life? Outside, the snow fell like a thick curtain. Clara bundled her children, Emma and Lucas, in their warmest coats, a mixture of wool and hope layered against the frigid air. They squealed with delight, eyes wide as they marched out to witness the town's enchanting holiday delights. But just as her spirit began to lift, she caught sight of Mr. Jenkins next door, standing far too close to their property line, his smile a touch too wide, his eyes glinting with something unnamely. "Mom, look!" Lucas shouted, pointing at the bright lights strung around the neighborhood like childhood dreams made real. Clara distractedly nodded, the playful energy stalling as Jenkins' insistence to join their small celebration sent a tremor of unease creeping up her spine. Sure, he was friendly, but something hovered beneath his surface, a darkness that seemed to swell as the darkness outside thickened. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they prepared their meager dinner, darkness loomed just outside, shadows playing tricks on Clara's mind. That familiar legend returned, flickering in her memory like the flame of her tiny kitchen candle. The chilling idea that the Veiled Watcher was closer than she thought, preying on distracted souls, waiting for moments of weakness. The giggles of her children morphed into something strange, echoes bouncing off the walls like a sinister refrain. Suddenly, the wind howled angrily, rattling the windows. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Her gut was screaming. A feral instinct ignited the fight-or-flight response she had always relied upon. She turned to find Mr. Jenkins watching her, his presence unnaturally calm, eyes glimmering with a knowing malice. As midnight approached, the air grew thick with tension. Shadows crept closer. The door rattled despite no wind. And in that unforgiving silence, Clara heard it, a whisper that filled the room with dread, calling her children's names, promising them adventures beyond imagination, in exchange for their innocence, hidden deep within their souls. The final chime of the clock echoed through the neighborhood, marking a tense transition from revelry to something much darker. Clara's instincts screamed at her to protect her children from the encroaching darkness. She would need to unravel not just the shadows of her neighbor, but also the truths buried deep in her family's stories. As the first light of dawn broke, Clara realized the legends of old were not simple tales after all. Some traditions carried curses far beyond her understanding. Would she save her family, or would they fall victim to the whispered promises of the Veiled Watcher? The night stretched on, her resolve deepening, but the shadows flickered with new life, and the questions loomed larger than ever. Clara's breath quickened as she stood at the window, peering out into the soft early morning light that fell over their snow-laden yard. Everything appeared normal, deceptive in its quiet beauty. The festive decorations still glimmered, yet the cheerful lights felt sinister now, mocking her. As if the town itself conspired with the dread that gripped her since last night. Lucas and Emma were still asleep, but her heart wouldn't let her rest. The quiet seemed to thrum with anticipation, an invisible tension knotting her stomach. Every fiber of her being screamed that she had to act before it was too late. Gathering her resolve, Clara clutched the old family book where the legend of the Veiled Watcher was penned. The pages felt cool, almost alive beneath her fingertips. She couldn't remember half of it. The tale had been more of a ghost story to frighten children than a reliable legend. Yet, now it seemed the only lifeline. "Find the truth before it finds you," she muttered under her breath, heart racing. She flipped through the brittle pages, eyes scanning for any important clue. It was a jumble of disjointed phrases and old diary entries, but one thing stood out: a warning. "Beware the darkness when the year turns, for it takes those not anchored by love." The words echoed hauntingly in her mind, and just as she was about to dig deeper into the tales, Emma's small voice broke through the stillness. "Mom? What's wrong?" Clara snapped the book shut. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just thinking." The look in Emma's eyes pierced her. It was an innocence threatened by layers of right and wrong. She had to protect them, but from what? The weight of uncertainty lay heavily on her shoulders. "Let us go for a walk," Clara suggested, hoping fresh air could clear the fog smothering her heart. The children needed to feel the normalcy of their joy before it slipped completely away. Maybe outside, surrounded by neighbors, she could find a sense of safety. As they stepped into the blinding white of snow, chilly air stung Clara's cheeks. She tried to shake off the ominous weight, but it clung to her like an unwanted shadow, a reminder that danger could sneak from behind the familiar, just like Mr. Jenkins had last night. Delighted laughter rang out as they built a snowman, but in the depths of her heart, dread brewed. She watched the neighborhood slowly wake around her, lights flickering on in cozy homes, adults sipping coffee in warm interiors. Mr. Jenkins, though, remained an unsettling presence, his silhouette peering from behind fraying curtains. Every so often, his eyes darted to Clara, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Let us go inside," she urged as panic flooded her veins. "Let us warm up." But as they retreated into their home, Clara couldn't shake the chill that clung to her joints. She could feel it, the veiled watcher's presence creeping closer, as if it had fed on her fears during the nightmare. Then the whispers began again. Not just in her head this time. Clara froze. "Did you hear that?" "What, Mom?" Lucas exclaimed, his innocent eyes wide. Clara strained to listen, a icy wave crashing over her. Names floated through the air like mist, promising freedom, adventure, and a thrill that hungered for her children's laughter. She bolted toward the window, her hands pressed against the frosted glass, heart thumping in sync to a primal fear. Outside, shapes loomed, churning within fog spirals. Creatures cloaked in darkness drew near, prowling silently past the threshold of the glowing lights, their intentions unclear. Clara gripped her children tighter, senses screaming it was too late to play, too late to ignore the family tales. "Stay close to me," she shouted, only to realize the whispers were growing louder, an echoing chaos that seemed to reach for her children. As her heart thundered, she turned to face the door, the soft creak resonating ominously. Whatever had been unleashed was not holding back. What would happen when the clock struck midnight once more? Would they face the veiled watcher together, or would darkness swallow them whole? Clara clenched her jaw, steeling herself for the unknown that lingered just outside the veil of light. Outside, an eerie silence fell. But she knew, deep down, the real horror was just beginning. The air inside the house grew dense and suffocating, pressing against Clara as the whispers intensified. They twisted like smoke, slithering through the light and wrapping around her mind. She turned, her heart pounding, locking eyes with Lucas and Emma. Their innocent faces reflected both curiosity and fear, their small hands clutching one another tightly. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, a desperate plea for answers clawing at her throat. The whispers responded, a cacophony blending into a single chilling voice, resonating from all directions. "Come play with us." Clara felt her skin prickle. Her instincts screamed to run, to shield her children from whatever dark designs lurked outside, but her feet felt planted to the floor. Could she even trust her own ears? In her mind, fragments of the family legend scrambled together, reminding her that the veiled watcher was drawn to innocence, to joy and laughter. But its call was sinister, insidious. It twisted the very things that brought light. Mom Emma's voice trembled, a whisper laced with uncertainty. "I want to go play. It's not dark yet." "No." Clara's shout startled them, a panic-fueled lurch in her stomach sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We can't go out there. We need to stay inside." The room felt colder. She could almost see her breath clouding in front of her. Then the light dimmed, flickering as if in response to her fear. Shadows danced at the edges of the room, twisting into shapes that seemed almost human but moved wrong, too fluid, too alive, too hungry. "Your light will not protect you," that voice hissed again, a deep, throaty laugh punctuating its cruel message. Clara's mind raced. Each heartbeat was a ticking clock, counting down moments until nightfall. The festival lights that had once brought happiness were mocking her now, their glow dimming against the spectral darkness creeping ever closer. She had to understand the truth behind the whispers, the veiled watcher, before it was too late. "Do you hear it too?" Clara asked Lucas and Emma, her breath hitching. They nodded slowly, eyes wide, terror reflecting back at her. "Stay close, listen carefully." "I have to find the book." With her heart bounding in her chest, Clara rushed to the living room, intention set amidst turmoil. She fumbled the old book from the shelf, reverent fingers brushing against the cool, worn cover. Flipping through the brittle pages, the warnings and terror woven in fragile script felt like a pulse beneath her fingertips. "Mom!" Lucas's voice broke through, sharper now, urgent. "Something's outside." Clara shot her head toward the window, and fear choked her breath. Dark figures had emerged from the fog, shapes wreathed in twilight, moving unnaturally, wafting towards her home as if pulled by strings of malevolence. Their hollow eyes glinted with a knowing hunger, staring straight into Clara's soul. "Do they want us?" Emma whimpered, her small body trembling. Clara's eyes darted back to the book. There had to be something, some hidden knowledge to protect them, to anchor them against the tide of darkness swirling around their family. "I will find it," she whispered, clutching the book tightly as shadows danced and writhed closer to the glass. Waves of whispers crashed against the house, chilling every inch of warmth. Clara could almost make out the words trying to invade her thoughts, wrapping around her like chains. "Come play forever." And then, amidst the chaos, her eyes caught a crucial phrase: "Only true love can sever the veil." Suddenly, realization struck her, a promise wrapped in terror. The warmth of her children's love was their greatest shield, but could it be enough? From outside, the dark figures pushed against the door, a slow, deliberate pressure that sent chills racing down her spine. The light flickered one last time, then exploded into darkness as the shadows breached her sanctuary. "What now?" Clara shouted, panic clawing at her throat as the darkness clamored for a taste of them. Just then, the clock on the wall began its monotonous ticking, counting down the seconds to midnight and to whatever horror awaited them on this cursed New Year's Eve. Would love be enough to repel the darkness, or would they join the veiled watcher in its eternal dismay? As she braced for the inevitable, a new realization tugged at her heart. A truth yet to be revealed, hidden within the swirling shadows. The darkness settled in like a heavy fog, suffocating and oppressive. Clara's heart thundered against her ribcage, a primal rhythm of fear and hope intertwined. She pressed the book to her chest, her lifeline in this waking nightmare. The chilling whispers called, almost pleading, echoing with a twisted sense of nostalgia that clawed at the edges of her memories. "Mom?" Lucas's voice broke through the haze, small and cracked. "What do we do?" Clara swallowed hard, shaking her head like she could dispel the shadows closing in. She felt the weight of the book, an anchor teetering on the verge of hope. "We hold on to each other," she whispered back, words coated in uncertainty. But deep down, part of her believed that love was their only weapon against whatever lurked beyond their door. Only true love can sever the veil. She murmured, trying to convince herself as much as them. The thud against the door quickened, a rhythm matching her pulse. She grasped Lucas and Emma, pulling them close, their warmth giving her a sliver of strength. She could feel their tiny bodies trembling against her, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. Outside, laughter echoed twisted and low. It seeped into the cracks, mingling with the whispers that had lulled them into this false sense of dread. The figures pressed harder, splintering the veneer of safety inside their home, their distorted shapes moving as if they were alive, as if they possessed desire and hunger. The clock tick-tocked mercilessly, each second a countdown to some unseen horror. Clara's mind raced. The words in the book, the warnings, they spun like ghosts in her thoughts, sliding past her grasp. There had to be something, some way to turn this tide. Suddenly, one whisper broke free from the cacophony, clearer than the rest, almost sweet. "Let us in, we just want to play." She felt a chill wrap around her as she recoiled, realizing that what they wanted was more than just innocent play. "It's a trick," she gasped, her eyes wide with terror. "Stay away from the door. Just don't listen to them." Still, Emma tugged at her sleeve, pleading silently, eyes full of worry. "Mom, I don't want to be scared anymore." Every nerve in Clara's body screamed to act, but she froze, caught between instinct and the reality outside. The veiled watcher, it seeks joy, twisted like a vine. It was as if the shadows themselves were mocking her struggle, feeding on her fear, feeding on her children's unwarranted hope. Then, without warning, the door shuddered violently. Wood splintered, and a dark hand curled around the edge, flesh-like but oily and writhing. Clara gasped, pulling Lucas and Emma tightly against her. The figure on the other side froze, its hollow eyes locking onto Clara. "Just let us play with you," it cooed, a sickly sweet voice that dripped like honey, tainted with malice. "No. We want tea," Clara shouted, hands shaking as she raised the book, the words proving futile against the horror ahead. But that moment, the moment they shared, held a power that surged through her like wildfire. With a burst of desperation, she opened the book wide, frantic fingers searching for answers in the pale light that flickered sporadically across the pages. It was madness, her mind a whirlpool, struggling to cling to hope as darkness pressed in. But with every stroke of her fingertips, she was drawn deeper into that ancient knowledge. The whispers waned just for a moment, as if they too were wary. Could she find the strength to save them? Then came a crack, light breaking through a fissure in the darkness. Clara's breath caught. "The love we have is our shield," she whispered. "But do we dare to match it against a nightmare?" The clock chimed, its hands settling at 12, a haunting echo piercing the suffocating hush. She shuddered, the weight of the night settling in her bones. As the figures pushed forward, grinning with predatory glee, Clara understood she had to summon all the love she held dear. "Hold on to me," she urged one last time, "or we'll lose everything." Just as the shadows surged forward with insatiable hunger, she took a deep breath. What followed next would alter their fates forever. Clara's finger landed on a chilling promise. Could they survive? Would love be enough? Or were they fated to join the wretched all along? In the darkness, a new shimmer glinted, and with it, a revelation lay waiting. But would it save them or shatter them? The air thickened, stifling Clara as she whispered the words she found on the brittle pages. The promise loomed, an ink-stained lifeline, a flicker of light amidst a consuming darkness. The shadows pressed closer, convulsing, eager to claim their prize of fear. Mom, Lucas grasped her hand tighter, his small fingers trembling like leaves caught in a storm. "What if no? We want tea, give in," Clara said, the bitter taste of panic coating her words. The words of the book bubbled from her lips, desperate as they tumbled forth. "Let the love we share create a barrier. Let it be our sword, our shield." The entity at the door, its ghastly form shifting and twisting, seemed to pulse with hunger. Clara focused on the glowing pages, a soft light now radiating with each word she spoke. The air crackled with energy of fragile, fleeting hope that may not last long against the dark tide. "Love is a weapon stronger than despair," she recited, her voice wavering but resolute. Yet doubts gnawed at her as she saw Lucas and Emma, clutching each other, eyes wide with terror. Would it be enough? Just then, the horde outside began to chant, their voices melding into a grotesque symphony that clawed into the very fibers of her sanity. "Let us in, let us play," their voices dripped malice, streaking through the fragile barrier her words had constructed. Clara felt her heart lurch as the haunting call mirrored the whispers from her memories, echoes of lost childhood, long forgotten. She clutched the book tighter, almost breaking it with her white-knuckled grip. "What do you truly want?" Clara shouted, voice cracking in challenge. The shadows paused, their malformed eyes flickering with intrigue at her defiance. "We want the joy you have, we can make it everlasting, unlike the fleeting moments in your human lives," they cooed, a serpentine hiss that chilled her blood. The promise of eternal joy, twisted like a vine around her heart, was it worth the risk? "No!" Clara shouted, her voice breaking the chant as she pushed forward with a new surge of determination. "You thrive on fear and pain. We won't succumb to your lies." Stars flickered in the book, shimmering brighter as if reacting to her defiance. "Only those who understand true despair can grasp the joy we offer." The darkness thickened, encasing the door in an unnatural gloom. Lucas's finger pointed toward the glimmering light emerging from the pages. "Mom! Look!" Desperation clawed at Clara. She turned, and in that fraction of a second, she felt the echoes of the darkness shift. The shapes outside surged forward, agile almost, wrapping around the doorframe like liquid shadow. The fear coursed through her again, a chilling reminder of her children's fragility, their innocence encased in this nightmare. "Hold on!" she ordered fiercely, her voice cutting through the haze. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The vibrations from the book grew fervent, light spinning in arcs of hope and dread. Shadows danced wildly, hissing and howling, refracted by the oncoming brightness. Clara held her breath, words building in her throat, a hymn against the abyss. In that moment, the dark entity screamed back, unhinged and furious. Clara felt ice clawing at her heart. "You are a false light. You cannot win. Watch us!" she cried, pushing against the shadows, thrusting her love forward, a barrier of strength surrounding her children. Each syllable she conjured drew the shimmering light closer, flickering like a candle caught in a storm. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the door blasted open, a mighty force fueled by otherworldly desperation. Clara flinched as cold tendrils wrapped around her, threatening to drag her into the void. She hunched protectively over Lucas and Emma, fearing the warmth of her love would not hold. But through the chaos, as the world split apart, a new whisper emerged clear and bright. As the edges of her vision blurred, Clara fought against the collapsing darkness. Was this the moment she had summoned? Would the purity of her motherly love break the veiled watcher's hold once and for all, or was something far darker set to awaken? "What's coming?" she screamed into the abyss as reality twisted and warped. The shadows tightened their grip, the ground beneath them trembled, and Clara's breath hitched. They tossed back shadows that flitted away, revealing a space unlike any she'd ever seen. "Stay close," she urged, heart racing faster as the book pulsed like a heartbeat, too powerful to ignore. Then, just ahead, another form emerged, not of darkness, but of light, waiting silently. Was it friend or foe? As the veil split further, a final thought flickered in Clara's mind. What if love wasn't the answer after all? And just like that, as the figures surged closer and the light struck the edges of her world, Clara was left with one agonizing question. Would they dare to find out? A blinding white light pierced through the darkness, casting fleeting shadows across Clara's face. She squinted, instinctively pulling Lucas and Emma closer. The figure stepping forth was ethereal, its features wrapped in a shroud of mist, brilliance flickering around it like starlight struggling against a storm. Are you? Clara hesitated, fear twining with an odd, gripping curiosity. Are you here to help us? The figure lingered, its form reshaping as if testing the very fabric of existence. Help? It echoed, a smooth voice that hinted at ancient wisdom laced with sorrow. What do you seek, dear mother? Light or truth? The question sank deep, uprooting anxiety that had already blossomed like a thorny vine in her heart. Clara ached with the weight of her choice, knowing that light could blind just as easily as darkness could ensnare. We seek safety, she managed, grappling for a way forward. We want to survive. Survival is a fragile concept, the figure whispered, the light around it wavering, like a candle puffed by an unseen breath. Those who seek it must confront unbearable truths. Clara's breath caught. She could almost hear the shadows at the edges of her vision murmuring aggressively, taunting her. She turned, dread pooling in her stomach as she glanced at the door. The gaping maw of the abyss had shifted, shadows swirling with malignant intent, eager to reclaim what had been taken. What truths? She pressed. Tell me what you know. But the figure merely looked onward, as if gazing through the veil of her reality to something more horrific. They thrive on fear, your enemy. They will feast on it until the last flicker of hope is extinguished. Its gaze snapped back, piercing through Clara, seeking the steadfastness buried beneath her panic. You must understand that love can blind as well. What if it pulls you into their embrace? Clara felt a shiver coil around her spine. This light was promising, but it also glimmered with an unsettling suspicion. You're saying love could lead us into danger? The figure swirled, light radiating like sunbeams through dark clouds. Flickers of memories raced through her mind, moments of joy, laughter, and warmth, but also the haunting specters of despair over lost smiles. You embrace a bond forged in the sunlight. But in shadows, it can twist, yearning for that light, but it is not always your ally. Fear gripped Clara's heart tighter. No. We've always had each other. Love is our strength. A ghastly howl rose from the shadows outside, a cacophony of sorrow and hunger that rattled her bones. Shadows took form, lurking, coiling with palpable hunger and weaving an intricate tapestry of despair. Clara's thoughts raced. Love felt like a weapon, something she could wield against the encroaching darkness. Wouldn't it? Will it be enough? She whispered, doubt creeping into her resolve as the exterior horrors loomed nearer. The figure hesitated, and in that silence, Clara caught the shift, an opportunity, perhaps. If you hold on to your love fiercely, it might just keep you apart for now, it finally warned, a hint of hesitation threading its tone. But be wary. The shadows learn. They will find a crack, a fissure in your bond. Clara felt her heart plummet. What if reach for love left them even more vulnerable? Just then, Lucas tugged harshly at her sleeve, eyes wide. Mom! They're coming! The darkness writhed, lashing through the threshold, chaos ripping at reality. Clara's breath quickened, her mind racing. What do we do now? She asked, half lost in the maelstrom of uncertainty. Embrace the truth, or embrace the love, the luminous figure warned before fading, leaving behind a trail of shimmering hope swallowed quickly by encroaching despair. Clara's mind raced as shadows ripped past her, claws reaching out. Gather close! She shouted, gripping Lucas and Emma, trying to forge their love into an unshakable shield. We will choose to fight. Together. As the shadows surged, claws stretching dangerously at their heels, Clara's grip clung tighter. Would her love be a beacon or a tomb? The voices outside crescendoed, mocking and jeering as the very air thickened. All for a fleeting warmth. Cherish your bond, fragile mortal. You shall see. The ground shook beneath them, raw terror mingling with the unyielding determination burning within her chest. What if we choose the truth instead? Clara shouted, but there was no answer in the rising clamor. In the heart of that swirling chaos, a piercing realization struck her like a thunderbolt. The shadows may know one truth as the darkness loomed, ready to consume them. One thought echoed in Clara's mind. What if we have to sacrifice our love to truly survive? And with that fear pulsing fiercely at the forefront of her thoughts, Clara felt her resolve waver, teetering dangerously on a cusp of unknown horrors. What lay on the other side if she dared untangle the bonds they had cherished? Could they survive that revelation at all? The shadows drew closer, hungry and insatiable. The shadows pooled around Clara like dark liquid, closing in with a chilling grip. "Hold on tight," she urged, her heart racing. Lucas and Emma clung to her, their small frames pressed against her, offering a warmth that seemed feeble against the icy fingers of fear swirling closer. A howl split the air once more, a sound filled with a deep, hollow hunger that reverberated in her bones. The darkness wasn't just creeping, it was attacking, a predatory force eager to devour their light. Clara's thoughts spiraled, grappling with the figure's haunting warning. What truth would they have to face? What price would love demand? The walls trembled, as if echoing the very essence of their plight. Panic gnawed at her mind. "We have to move," she shouted, striving to pierce through the shadowy cacophony. The air seeped with a dense humidity that clung, suffocating and ominous. "Where do we go?" Emma's voice quivered, her innocent confusion cutting through the haze. "Anywhere but here," Clara yelled. She half-dragged, half-lifted the children towards the door, its outline a mere suggestion against the voracious shadows. The darkness hissed, like serpents hungry for their next meal, and she could hear whispers laced with malice, curling around her thoughts. They burst through the door, tumbling into a corridor, the brightness flickering overhead like a flickering candle about to die. The hallway stretched out, distorted and endless, and for a heartbeat, Clara felt the shifting walls close in, seeming to know her insecurities, her fears. "Mom!" Lucas tugged at her. Panic surged. "They're right behind us." Clara turned, dread spilling over. The shadows surged through the doorway, a crashing wave of darkness eager to reclaim its prey. "Run!" She propelled the children forward, wading into the unknown. They dashed through the twisting corridor, their footsteps echoing in the suffocating darkness behind them. As they sprinted, Clara's mind spun. The words of the figure twisted in her thoughts. Love could blind, and the fear of losing it could be just as perilous. What if they were already too late? Would each decision further unravel their fragile bond? Suddenly, the corridor forked, two paths stretching ahead, both cloaked in darkness. Clara stopped, breathless. "Which way?" she gasped, the weight of the world pressing her down. "Left," Lucas shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. Instinct or fear, she chose to trust it, veering down the left path. Dust hung in the air, thick like despair, and Clara could feel something watching them. The shadows began to flicker, unsteady, almost as if confused by their choice. Clara felt a moment of hope, a spark that ignited the fear within her. But then the whispers returned, louder, clawing at her thoughts. "Do you truly believe love can save you?" they hissed, mocking and sinister. Clara gritted her teeth, pushing forward, but those words stuck, a thorn digging deeper. Another howl erupted, as the shadows surged again, rageful, discordant. Lights flickered above, static cracking, and in that moment of near clarity, Clara felt the unraveling of her resolve. The figures appeared, flickering in flashes of light, the faces of loved ones, twisted in anguish, merging with the shadows. They reached out, mouths opening in silent cries of desperation. "Mom, look out!" Emma shouted, pulling her back just as a shadow lunged, claws slashing where she stood moments before. Clara felt her heart drop, her pulse pounding in her ears. "Choose!" the shadows screamed. "Choose the truth. Choose the love." Her heart thundered against her ribcage. If she chose the truth, what would it reveal? If she clung to love, might it expose her to greater dangers? Clara's mind raced, caught in a whirlpool of instinct and fear, desperate for a way to navigate the tempest surrounding them. And then, in the corner of her eye, she spotted a door emerging from the shadows, its surface rough and cloaked in darkness. Clara glanced at Lucas and Emma, their eyes wide with fear, yet she saw a flicker of defiance burning within them. Together? Clara whispered, drawing strength from their presence. They exchanged a knowing glance, an unspoken agreement buzzing in the air. Together. They echoed, their voices fierce against the encroaching dread. As they plunged for the door, Clara's heart raced. Behind them, the cacophony of shadows boiled, a howling frenzy of frustration, but a glimmer of light began to cut through the suffocating darkness. Would it safely guide them away, or draw them into an ever deeper abyss? The door swung open, and what lay beyond twisted her stomach with its alluring brightness. Would it lead to safety, or devastation? Clara took a breath, ready to leap into the unknown. But before they could pass through, a voice trembled from the shadows. "You don't know what you're about to unleash," and just like that, fear knotted in her gut as uncertainty loomed on the horizon. What awaited them in the blinding light? Would the truth truly set them free, or would it shatter the very love they fought to hold on to? The light spilled into the corridor, glowing with a brilliance that promised safety, but Clara's heart thudded like a drum in the oppressive silence. The shadows writhed behind them, angry and desperate, clawing for their chance to pull Clara and the children back into the darkness. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, the children pushing against her, their little hands trembling but resolute. With each step into the light, fresh fear surged within her. What if the voice was right? What if the door led to something far worse than the shadows? Perhaps truth was a weapon, and love, the greatest price. But facing the darkness meant risking the very essence of what she held dear, her love for Lucas and Emma. For the first time, doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. The door slammed shut behind them, echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. They stumbled into a wide, luminous room, the brightness like a stark contrast to the oppressive shadow. A vast space lay before them, adorned with mirrors that lined the walls, reflecting their pale faces back at them. It felt wrong, even the air crackled with static, holding its breath like something massive was about to happen. "Where are we?" Emma whispered, her voice barely above a whisper but thick with dread. Clara glanced around, but all she could see were their reflections, disoriented, terrified figures who seemed to watch for dangers lurking behind her. "I don't know," she admitted, her own voice faltered with the weight of uncertainty. "Just, stay close." Suddenly, the reflections shifted unnaturally. Each mirror warped, the glass bending like the surface of disturbed water. Clara felt a chill run down her spine as dark shapes began to ripple within. Figures, fractured and distorting, appeared. Faces they never wanted to see, familiar yet twisted into expressions of pain and betrayal. "Mom! Look!" shouted Lucas, pointing at the nearest mirror. Clara turned to find her own face staring back at her, but it wasn't her reflection. The figure smiled, a slow, devastating grin that sent ice through her veins. "You think you're safe?" it whispered, the voice an echo that resonated inside her mind. "This is only the beginning." The shadows were gone, but their presence lingered like a bad memory. Clara felt as though all sight, sound, and air had been siphoned from the room, leaving a tangible sense of dread. "Don't listen!" she shouted, gripping Emma and Lucas's hands tightly, as if that alone could shield them from the horror on the other side of the glass. But it was too late. The whispers began again, weaving their way through the air. "You failed them, kept them in the dark. You can't protect them, Clara." "No!" she screamed, clutching the children tighter. The mirrors began to ripple violently, shadows twisting outwards like thick tendrils reaching for the light. An icy laugh filled the air, bubbling up from the depths of the room. Clara felt it clawing at her resolve, begging her to succumb, to let the truth wash over her like a tidal wave. And there, in the mirror's grasp, Clara glimpsed the twisted love that might exist should she fail to protect her children. The thought chilled her even deeper than the dark, clawing shadows. "We have to break this," she gasped, shaking off the smothering despair. "Break what?" Lucas asked, eyes wide as the dark shapes in the mirrors seemed to lurch forward, begging to be let out. Before she could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. A deafening shriek split the atmosphere. Clara turned to face the source. A gaping void had opened behind the mirrors, a dark vortex spewing forth shadows like the long-lost souls of those long forgotten. They spiraled around her, lost in screams and cries. The time for hesitation had passed. "We must destroy them," Clara urged, desperate to break the spell. But how? Would the truth release them, or was it merely bait to anchor them deeper in despair? In a final act of defiance, Clara rushed forward, intent on shattering the nearest mirror, hoping that love's strength would wield greater power. But before she could collide with glass, a sudden realization hit her. What if the shattered pieces would reflect the very heart of her fears? The truth that could break them apart. Clara halted, horror etching itself into her features. What if, the truth isn't what we expect? A cacophony of laughter erupted from the shadows as the room began to warp around them. What lay ahead threatened to be the ultimate revelation of their bond. In an instant, Clara stood at the threshold, faced with a decision that could either sever their love or bind it together, entrenching them forever in the echoes of the darkness. "Clara." Emma's voice trembled, the dawning dread pooling in her eyes. Was her mother prepared to risk it all? What lay beyond the shards of truth, glimmering eerily in the light? "Go back," she suddenly shouted, feeling the pull of time slipping away, the shadows creeping. "Don't look." But as the echoes twisted and spun, panic overwhelmed her heart. The clock ticked louder, ominous in the silence. "Choose now, Clara." The tendrils tightened, and her breath faltered. "Will you face the truth or embrace the darkness?" In the momentum of her hesitation, the wall sighed, and the room began to close in, blurring the lines between light and shadow. Clara took one last look at her children, a piercing realization driving fear deeper than any shadow could. And in that moment of desperation, she felt as if the very fabric of love and time was about to unravel. Would the truth save them or condemn them to the very horrors they were escaping? As time suspended, the echoes held their breath in anticipation. And Clara, poised on the brink, awaited what darkness awaited within her decision. The moment Clara hesitated, the shadows lunged forward with ferocity, snaking around her ankles like living chains. A gasp escaped her lips as she struggled to move, to act, but the weight of the decision pressed down, anchor-like, holding her in place. The echoed laughter twisted, morphing into wheezes of sorrowful cries that punctuated the heavy silence. "Don't look, Clara. Don't look." Emma sobbed, her small hands digging into Clara's arm, nails biting against skin. Lucas, wide-eyed, pulled at Clara's sleeve. "Mom, we can't stay here. Please." His voice trembled, laced with dread that wrapped around Clara's chest, squeezing tighter with each passing second. With a forceful shake of her head, Clara fought against the rising panic. She could not let the shadows take hold, she had to do something, anything. But each mirror seemed to pull her in, promising clarity while whispering of secrets best left buried. The air pulsated with murky energy, pulling in her breath, blurring her vision. "Brace yourselves," she shouted, and with a weighty determination, she stepped closer to the nearest mirror, heart pounding. The surface glimmered menacingly, each reflection morphing into grotesque versions of reality. What if breaking them unleashed a fate worse than their current torment? The shadows writhed, a dark tide advancing, urging her to succumb to doubt. Echoes slithered through the air. "You can't keep them safe, the truth will tear you apart." Shaking her head, Clara grasped the resolve she had tried to bury. "No, not today." Suddenly, the laughter intensified, growing louder, morphing into a symphony of despair that clawed at her sanity. In one swift motion, Clara swung her foot forward, shattering the mirror into a cascade of glass shards that rained down like frozen petals. A piercing scream echoed, but it wasn't from Clara or her children. It emerged from the very depths of the mirror, a cacophony of long-lost souls trapped within, howling in fury as they tumbled forth in spectral forms. Faces emerged familiar, contorted by fear and rage. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized them, lost friends, long-forgotten family, eyes hollowed by despair. "No!" she shouted, stumbling back, pulling her children closer as shadows spiraled outwards, threatening to consume them whole. But it was too late. The vortex opened wider, the echoes of the past colliding with the present, each cruel visage a reminder of what was lost. Emma shivered in Clara's embrace, her voice quivering. "Mom, they're coming. Hold on." Clara replied, but doubt seeped into her heart. What had she unleashed? As the shadows closed in, Clara realized the truth was not just about her fears, but about the cost of love, the possible cost. Rearranging itself in her mind, she remembered the warmth in her heart when she held her children, the moments spent together in laughter and joy. Could she face the truth, whatever it was, without tearing them apart? Lucas suddenly gasped, pointing to a new reflection forming in the fractured glass. At first, it looked like a normal family picture: her, Lucas, Emma, all smiles. But as they watched, the image warped, each face distorting, eyes turning soulless, lips stretching into horrid grins. "It's us!" he cried, terror in his voice. "Look away!" Clara screamed, bundling them against her. "Don't let them make you see!" The darkness swirled, the vortex pulsing in time with their pounding hearts. But the shadows began to merge with the echoes of the past, revealing fragments of Clara's life, every choice, each moment of doubt, every betrayal parading before her, demanding recognition. If she didn't confront the darkness inside, they would never escape. "Clara!" Emma's voice shook, barely audible over the chaos. "You have to decide." Tendrils of shadow encircled them, breathing cold despair, mocking her hesitation. Clara closed her eyes, visions darting through her mind like cracked lightning. Love, pain, guilt, a whirlwind of emotions that chained her. "Time is running out." The mocking laughter echoed, wrapping around her like a vice. Finally, with a deep breath, she turned to the swirling shadows and whispered, "I will face you." The declaration hung in the air, solid yet fragile. An intimidating hush fell, the whispers died away, and the mirrors ominously trembled, anticipating her next move. But what revelation would await her, lurking in the depths of her truth? In the pulsating silence, dread gripped her heart. Clara could feel the darkness closing in again, prepare for retribution. The demons of her past, the essence of the shadows, were all set to reveal how deep the scars ran. Would she be ready to face the cost of loving fiercely? As the shadows loomed high, Clara took a step forward. "What do you want?" And just like that, the darkness sighed, preparing to unveil the terrible truth. In that moment of fragile silence, Clara felt the weight of the world bend around her. What truth lay coiled like a serpent, ready to strike? What would she confront next? The shadows swirled in an unfathomable dance, a storm of darkness pressing in on Clara, wrapping around her as though the universe itself had turned against her. She could feel the weight of their whispers, their taunts pulling the breath from her lungs, threatening to drown her in despair. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of defiance stirred within her heart. "Show yourself!" Clara demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Lucas and Emma clung to her, their small hands trembling in fear, but she could feel their love anchoring her even as doubt clawed at her resolve. They were worth the fight, worth every painful truth. A thick silence settled. The shadows paused, waiting, but Clara stood firm, taking a step forward into the suffocating dark. "I choose to face whatever you are. My love for my children outweighs any monster you can conjure. We will fight back together." With that declaration, the shadows crackled, the room trembling. Clara focused on the warmth of her children, drawing from their innocence and laughter, a wellspring of light against the encroaching darkness. Images began to flicker through the haze, the joyful memories of family, of every laugh shared, every hug exchanged, moments of pure love that formed an unbreakable bond. "Embrace the light of love!" Clara shouted, feeling courage swell in her chest. "You cannot have us!" With every ounce of strength, she surged forward, pushing against the dark tide, the truth she faced becoming clearer with each moment. The shadows roared, their cries a tumultuous symphony of rage. Then the mirrors began to flicker, reflecting images of sorrow, of fears she had buried deep. Failures, lost relationships, every moment of doubt screamed back at her. She fought through them, reminding herself of love's triumph, of the countless times it conquered despair. "Look away from the darkness," she urged her children. "Hold on to our love." Suddenly, a piercing light burst from Clara's core, bright enough to shatter the haunting images. It surged outward, clawing back the shadows, illuminating the grotesque figures that had cornered them. "We are not defined by our past. Our love defines us." The shadows writhed as the light enveloped them, dissipating their twisted forms. Clara could feel their power weakening, the eerie laughter that once filled the air faded into soft whispers of longing, yearning but no longer aggressive. But then, a figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked in shimmering shadow, its features elusive yet hauntingly familiar, her own reflection, yet twisted beyond recognition. "You cannot escape the truth, Clara," it taunted, a cruel smirk upon its lips. "You will never be enough. You will always fail them." The words sliced through her like ice, and Clara faltered, doubt creeping in again. Could she truly protect them? "Mom!" Emma's voice cut through the haze of despair, filled with certainty. "You are strong. We believe in you." That belief ignited a fire in Clara's heart. "No! I am not alone," she shouted. "Our love is our truth." The shadows recoiled and dissipated under the radiance, and she surged forward, pushing her fears aside. She was not defined by her mistakes or her doubts, but by the love she had for her children. "Together," she said, glancing at Lucas and Emma, their eyes shining bright with support. "We stand united." Suddenly, the echoes of laughter began to shift, transforming into whispers of hope and remembrance, the spectral shapes retreating further into the confines of the shadows. The tortured faces within the mirrors faded, replaced by joyous memories, her children's laughter on a summer day, the warmth of family holiday dinners, the quiet moments shared on the porch at sunset. "Let go of your fear," the luminous figure of light beckoned. "Embrace the truth. Love does not blind, it gives sight." With renewed vigor, Clara stepped closer to the light, cradling her children as her heart beat steadily against the chaos around them. "We have faced darkness together, and we will rise stronger. Love isn't a weakness, it is our greatest strength." The shadows howled, the growing light expelling them as the room erupted into brilliance, illuminating every crevice with warmth and hope. Clara took a deep breath, exhaling the fear as the last shreds of darkness crumbled around them. As the chaos began to settle, Clara took an instinctive step toward the bright center. "We embrace our truth, and it will lead us to freedom." A brilliant flash engulfed them, every scary memory dissolving in the pure light. The darkness buzzed with desperate fury before folding in on itself, dissolving like mist before the sun. With a final rush of illumination, Clara found herself standing outside, her breath pluming in the crisp morning air, the snow blanketing the ground as a newfound sense of peace enveloped her. She looked around, the world felt alive again. The aching silence of the night had been washed away. Lucas squeezed her hand, a childlike grin illuminating his face. Emma pressed close, her little giggles brightening the freshly fallen snow. "Did we do it, Mom?" Lucas asked, wide-eyed, filled with wonder. Clara nodded, relief washing over her as her heart swelled. "We did. We faced our fears together, and nothing can break our bond. At that moment, the weight of everything faded. The haunted whispers of the veiled watcher, the threatening shadows, they were all gone, reduced to mere memories, powerless against their love. As the sun broke above the horizon, Clara wrapped her arms around her children, their warmth radiating against the chill. A promise of a brighter future gleamed ahead, filled with laughter, love, and renewal. Happy New Year! Clara shouted, her voice ringing with hope, reclaiming joy in the face of darkness. And as they stood together, embracing the dawn of a new beginning, Clara knew they were not just survivors, they were warriors, anchored by love that would never waver. With that, Clara took a deep, triumphant breath, ready to step into the uncharted territory of the year ahead. Love had been tested, but it had prevailed even against the darkest of nights. Now, if you love this story and want to dive into more exclusive tales of terror and triumph, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't wait even one more second to join our community. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the word. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What did you think? If you know friends who need to see this conclusion, share this video with at least 5 of them. Together, let's create a space where our shared experience can spark excitement and connection. Now's the time to show your support.